Who's ready to talk about Hokie football in 2024? I know I am. I've been looking forward to this video for quite some time. Why? Well, Virginia Tech not only could be one of the ACC's biggest sleepers, it could be one of the nation's biggest sleepers in 2024. And can Virginia Tech be in line to make a college football playoff spot? Well, they have a lot of returning production to do so. You're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to prediction season. Welcome back to prediction season. Or if this is the first video of mine you're watching, again, welcome. I'm predicting all 134 FBS level college football teams this summer, which means I'm doing your favorite team. Apologies for that little hiccup there, but I'm doing your favorite team. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded. Whether you're a Hokie fan or not, thank you so much for watching this video. It helps support my channel in more ways than you can even imagine. And if you would like to continue to support what I do here on YouTube, please like, comment, share, again, subscribe, watch my other videos, and do anything else you can to interact with the channel, because what you do to interact with it helps to support it. So I appreciate all of your love and support. Let us now dive on in to talking about the Virginia Tech Hokies in 2024. How do we do that, Nate? Well, I'm about to tell you. We're going to take a deep dive into the team's offense, into the defense, and then at the end of the video, we will go through the Hokie football schedule and we'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. A couple more footnotes before we do set sail. Right over here are going to be the stats the team either offensively or defensively put up last season. And for your viewing pleasure, yes, you dear viewer right out there, right below the team logo, I have put the team's coaching staff. So with no further delay, let's start by talking about the most important position on the field. That's the quarterback position, and Grant Wells is going to be graduating. Played in his fair share of games last season, was the primary starter entering the season, started the game against Old Dominion and Purdue before being switched out for a player that we're going to be naming here in just a little bit. But he had 521 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 picks, 55% completion percentage, but hey, they ended up making the move over to a guy by the name of Kyron Drones, and yeah, it kind of worked out for him. He's got a pretty darn good arm that, look, I think could use a little bit of development, and not a lot at all. I mean, like little tiny steps to help improve his game. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let me run through Kyron Drones' stat line from last season. 2,084 yards, 17 touchdowns, only 3 picks on 58% completion percentage. He's going to start a full season this year. That is the expectation. So those touchdown numbers going to increase that completion percentage. You want to see that get better as well. And again, with playing 2 more games, he's going to end up seeing that yards number jump up there as well. But Kyron Drones, very good quarterback. He's also a very, very good athlete because he was the team's second leading rusher last year in 166 carries, 818 yards, and 5 touchdowns. I do believe that includes sack yardage as well. And yeah, he got sacked 21 times last season. So again, a candidate to be a 1,000-yard rusher for this Virginia Tech offense, absolutely. He's a very, very, very talented quarterback. There also is a very experienced quarterback. Yes, you do lose one in Grant Wells, but Colin Schlee, a former Kent State Golden Flash, and most recently a UCLA Bruin, comes into this room to what you would think be Kyron Drones' primary backup. Now, this team does have a lot of talented running backs as well, and although you lose a lot of depth through the transfer portal in Bryce Duke, Chance Black, and Traylon Mitchell, you do get your top 2 leading rushers among running backs coming back. I will butcher this first name, so I apologize if I somehow say it right. Let me know in the comments. But Bashal Tootin will be coming back to this room. The leading rusher for the Hokies last year had 173 carries, so just a little bit more than what Drones had scrambling out of the pocket last season. 863 yards and 10 rushing touchdowns last season. You also do return Malachi Thomas, who only had 83 carries, but made the most of those, 4.6 yards per carry, 381 yards, and 2 scores for him last season. And then a depth piece in Jeremiah Coney back as well. But it'll be led by Tootin and Thomas, and then, of course, you have the dual threat ability of Kyron Drones there as well. You do lose a depth piece in the wide receiver room in Dwayne Lofton, a guy that I think has some pretty high upside, but he only had 6 catches last year. No, your biggest loss in the pass catching room comes in the tight end room. Daquan Wright is going to be transferring out of this program. He has found a new home in that of the Ole Miss Rebels to go in and probably end up being the starting tight end over with Lane Kiffin's group, a squad that definitely is going to make a push for the college football playoff. But Daquan Wright last season, 3rd leading receiver, 366 yards and no touchdowns on 28 catches for the tight end last season. So what does your pass catching room look like in 2024, Nate? What does the Hokie pass room look like? or I should say the receiving room look like? Well, let me tell you, your top two targets still do come back. Daquan Felton and Jalen Lane were your top two receivers from a season ago. Almost 80 catches between the two of them there. Felton had 667 yards and 8 touchdowns on 38 catches, and Lane 538 yards, 6 touchdowns on 41 catches. You also do get another pretty talented piece back in Ollie Jennings, who is definitely going to see more playing time in 2024. Stephen Gosnell and Zavon Turner Bradshaw will also be coming back into this room. And then in the tight end room, Benji Gosnell is the returning receivers among tight ends from last season, 139 yards and 1 touchdown on 12 catches for him last season. But Nick Gallo also returns. You figure he's going to have a big part in this Hokie offense next season, or I should say this upcoming season. Harrison St. Germain also back in the tight end room as well. And with Johnny Dixon, Jack Holyfield gone through the transfer portal on the offensive line, Xavier Chaplin, Braylon Moore, Caden Moore, Parker Clements, and Bob Schick all come back, while Montavious Cunningham is a Georgia State transfer that, who knows, probably going to end up getting a starting job on this offensive line. So let's talk about the offense here, and more specifically, let's talk about Kyron Drones. So the run game is going to be where it needs to be. As it was last season, it returns pretty much every major contributor from last year. Tootin, Thomas, and Drones will have all very good rushing seasons, in my opinion. I think the pass catching room is also pretty good, but it's up to Kyron Drones to make those little improvements in his passing game. What do I mean by that? Again, you want to see the completion percentage take a tick up. His yardage is surely going to take a tick up from where it was last season, which also inevitably you're hoping will lead to more touchdowns, and you want to keep that interception number around the same. Only 3 interceptions all season is a great number. Kyron Drones has major upside, and if he can develop that passing game just a little bit more, I think he's going to be a phenomenal quarterback for the Hokie offense in 2024. And if the offensive line can get a little bit better as well, that's just going to make this offense even more dangerous than it already has the potential to be. So now let's talk about this defense. And while it doesn't lose a whole lot of names, it does lose some pretty good talent, most notably on the defensive line. Feldarius Payne is gone, 31 tackles, 4 sacks a season ago, as is Norrell Pollard, 25 tackles and 4 sacks as well for him last year. And then Mario Kendrick, 16 tackles and a sack and a half last season. All 3 of those guys will now be seeing their talents taken to Sunday. Alan Tisdale is also going to be gone out of this linebacker room. And he was the second leading tackler on the team last season. He has run out of college eligibility. 75 tackles, a sack and a half, and 2 pass defended for Tisdale last season. So, okay, what does the defensive front 7 look like for the Hokies in 2024? Well, I'm glad you asked. Defensive line, while it did lose 3 very talented players, is still absolutely loaded. Your leading tackler among defensive linemen, who also led your team in sacks by a wide margin last season, was Antoine Powell-Ryland, who had 40 tackles, 9.5 sacks last season, and is due to have another big year in 2024. Cole Nelson, CJ McCray, and Keyshawn Burgos also all return to the defensive line. And then a lot of transfers coming into the defensive line room to just give this team insanely good depth. Aeneas Pebbles, however you pronounce that first name. Peebles. I'm so sorry. I did not see the extra E. Aeneas Peebles is coming over from Duke. Curtis Perry is coming over from Alabama. Kelvin Gilliam is coming over from Oklahoma. And then Kamari Copeland is a JUCO transfer, a community college transfer, coming over from Iowa Western. I believe was the 76th, 77th, maybe 78th overall rated player coming out of a community college, according to 24/7 Sports. He could play some big minutes on the defensive line for the Hokies in 2024. And then in your linebacker room, well, yes, while your second leading tackler in Alan Tisdale is gone, your leading tackler is coming back. That was Kelly Lawson, 80 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 6 passes defended, and an interception for him last season. You also do get Jaden McDonald and Jaden Keller back in this linebacker room. McDonald ended up having 30 tackles, Keller 23 of them last season. And then some pieces coming in through the transfer portal. You have Sam Brumfield, who's a Middle Tennessee transfer, and then Caleb Spencer coming over from the U. The Hurricane transfer should play some big minutes in the linebacker spot for the Hokies this upcoming season. All right, now we got to talk about this defensive back room. It loses a very good player in Derek Canteen, who is going to be going over to the Cincinnati Bearcats. Canteen was a top 10 tackler on the team last season, 43 tackles, 5 pass defended, and an interception last year. A depth piece in Antonio Cotman is also gone, which means, again, yes, while Canteen is a really big loss, you do return a lot of your better corners from 2024 or from 2023, now entering 2024. Mansour Delaney, however you pronounce that last name, again, I apologize. Fourth leading tackler, had 54 of them, pass defended, and a pick for him last season. Dorian Strong and Dante Lovett will also be coming back to this cornerback room. Or I should say, not Deontay. I don't know where I got that from. Dorian Strong led the team in pass defended and interceptions last season. 8 pass defended and 3 picks. So he'll be one of the better defensive backs for the Hokies yet again in 2024. You also do lose Nike Hawkins out of the safety room, but no matter, pretty much every major contributor comes back, as Hawkins was a depth piece last season. Keonta Jenkins, Jalen Stroman, Jalen Jones, Moose Phillips, and Caleb Woodson, all back to be safeties for the Hokies in 2024. And kickers are people too, so let's show them some love. Peter Moore is back to do the punting duties, while John Love returns to the primary place kicker, made all of his extra points and all but 2 field goals in 24 tries last season, while Kyle Lowe is there as a kicker as well. Let's talk about the Hokie defense in 2024. You look right over there. Look at that pass defense number. It was exceptional. They were one of the best passing defenses in the entire country last season. And while losing Derek Canteen, you return a lot of talent to this defensive back room, and it undeniably will be a very good pass defense yet again in 2024. Now, the rush defense definitely had its moments where it was lacking last season, but with all they boosted up on the defensive end through from the defensive line and in the linebacker room with transfers, a lot of that returning talent coming back as well. Yes, the defensive front seven does lose a lot of great talent. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word for a second. The defensive line loses a lot of great talent to the NFL. Of course, Alan Tisdale being gone is a big loss, but there still is a lot of talent in this defensive front seven. You know there's really good talent back in the secondaries. Again, everyone but Canteen comes back, and the Hokie defense should be one to fear in 2024. As now we take a look at the Hokie football schedule, any game in green is going to be, oh my goodness, Nate, you're getting too far ahead of yourself here. Any game at home will be underlined, while any game on the road is in italics or that slanted text. Now we'll tell you what the colors mean. Any game in green is a game that I think the Hokies will win fairly easily with little to no trouble. Any game in yellow is going to be a game to where I think, hey, it's going to be a little bit of a fight. The Hokies will have to contend here, but I do think they'll walk away with the win, while any game in red is a predicted loss for Virginia Tech in 2024. And I think you start out 3-0 here. Now, Vanderbilt is not going to be an easy pushover game, but Virginia Tech obviously is the more talented team. Vanderbilt is a team that sit towards, if not at the bottom of the SEC. They will probably end up doing so again in 2024. But for the Vanderbilt Commodores, there is some pretty solid talent on both sides, but not enough to contend with the Virginia Tech Hokies. And then against 2 really pretty solid Sunbelt squads in Marshall and Old Dominion, I think they pick up 2 wins there as well. The defense going to be a huge factor in that game against Marshall, as there are some pretty good offensive players there. And then the offense going to be a pretty big factor against Old Dominion, as there are some pretty good defensive pieces over there. Again, you could switch the narrative about both of those games. Anyway, what I'm trying to say, 2 very solid Sun Belt teams that I think Virginia Tech will get the upper hand on in both of them. So that leads you to 3-0 coming into the game against Rutgers. And for me, I know this is in Blacksburg. I know it's in Lane Stadium, but it is a toss-up game for me because I really like Rutgers in 2024. Ethan Kaliak-Manis is a transfer quarterback coming over from Minnesota that probably you will see him get the starting role, but a lot of defensive players come back to that team that was a very talented defense last season. You are getting that running back whose name is escaping my mind. One second. Kyle Monangai was who I was thinking of, and my slide ended up going back on me. Yes, they already did beat Old Dominion, and I think they're going to get the upper hand against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights here. But as I was saying about Rutgers, Kaliak-Manis coming into play quarterback. Kyle Monangai is still back. He was a 1,200-yard rusher last season that could easily do that again in 2024. A lot of really good defensive pieces coming back for Rutgers, but this one being in Blacksburg does matter, especially if it is a night game. That's just a really tough environment for Greg Schiano's group to walk in. That is a huge toss-up game for me, but I am going to go with the Hokies to win that one. I think the dual threat ability of Kyron Drones will give this Rutgers defense a little bit too much to plan for, and this Virginia Tech defense is also really good, and I trust their offense more than I do Rutgers because they do have better quarterback play when you compare the likes of Drones and Kaliakmanis. So I like Virginia Tech to win that game against Rutgers and start out 4-0. And while they could very well be starting out 5-0 after a win against the Miami Hurricanes, it is not arguable that Mario Cristobal has his team lose a game due to some coaching blunder pretty much every single year. He did that while he was at Oregon. We all know what happened in the Georgia Tech game last year. This Miami team is very, very talented. You have Cam Ward coming over from Washington State, a very good quarterback. Damian Martinez is one of the nation's best running backs, and he comes in over from Oregon State. Xavier Restrepo is coming back. This team loaded up on defensive transfers, and I think this is one where you suffer your first loss if you are the Virginia Tech Hokies. Coming off what I think is going to be a really tough, really physical game against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, you have to go on the road to play a very talented Miami team, and I think you end up dropping that one. So a Week 5 loss puts you at 4-1, but you'll quickly move to 5-1 with a win against the Stanford Cardinal. Troy Taylor's group has just got to show me something. They were not a very good team in the Pac-12 last season, now coming over to the ACC. I still don't think they're going to have that much success, will the Stanford Cardinals. So Virginia Tech get the win on the road there. And then coming back at home after the first bye week of the season, you're going to get to play the Boston College Golden Eagles here. And look, while I think the Eagles give you guys a fight, this one being a Thursday game at home, I think Blacksburg is going to be loud, and the Hokies are going to be able to win that game. I think Boston College is going to be one of those sneaky teams in the ACC this season. They're going to be able to pull off a win or two that they probably had no business winning, right? There seem to be some games like that in the ACC every year, and a lot of them end up happening on these weekday games. If this game was on the road, I'd be pondering it a little bit more if I were the Virginia Tech Hokies, but I do see this one being a win for the Hokies, as well as that game against Georgia Tech as well. Now, Georgia Tech is going to be a much tougher opponent than Boston College this year. The Yellow Jackets are on an upward trend. They have a lot of good talent offensively, some pretty solid talent defensively as well. And Georgia Tech is going to be one of those teams in the ACC that's going to claw, scratch, and fight. They're going to be a very competitive side this upcoming season. But again, the dual threat ability of Kyron Drones, I think, is going to play a huge, huge factor here, as well as I also just really like this Virginia Tech defense. That rush defense will get better, and I think it'll help slow this Georgia Tech rush offense that I think could be pretty solid in 2024 down. And so Virginia Tech, all of a sudden they're sitting here at 7-1. And look, Virginia Tech still controls their own destiny. They are well on their way. But unfortunately, I do think you suffer a loss to the Syracuse Orange. There's still a lot of talent on that Syracuse team. Kyle McCord comes in, had a fairly successful year with the Ohio State Buckeyes last season to avoid that quarterback battle, did transfer over to Syracuse. There are some good receivers over with the Orange, some good defensive pieces as well, as they always seem to string together some really good defensive backs. And I think Syracuse has all the pieces they need to be able to slow Virginia Tech down. Now, that secondary for Virginia Tech is going to be able to slow down Kyle McCord and the Syracuse passing attack, but going on the road and playing in the Carrier Dome is not as tough as going on the road to play in Blacksburg, sure, but it still is a tough place to play, a very underrated tough place to play that fans there can get loud, and with the dome, the sound funnels. I just see this one being an upset loss for the Virginia Tech Hokies. Maybe they're looking ahead a little bit to the game against Clemson, but you walk into this game against Clemson, and I think you pull out the win against the Clemson Tigers. It's not that I don't like Clemson this year. I expect a year 2 jump out of Garrett Riley and Cade Klubnik, and I think that Clemson team, especially defensively, is still going to be really good. But Virginia Tech will pull off this upset. Mark my words. Kyron Drones, the dual threat ability, will be a lot for this Clemson defense to handle. They're going to be better than they were last year. Maybe not back up to the elite levels that they have been at, or they will be very close to it. Clemson, offensively, I still have a lot of worries with them, especially with that pass game. Klubnik, I think, will take a step up. Won't be enough to go into Lane Stadium, pull off the win. I have you losing to the Duke Blue Devils. Don't discount Duke. Yes, Riley Leonard, Jordan Waters are gone, but Jacques Moore is still there. You get Malik Murphy, who's a quarterback transfer coming over from Texas, some really good defensive pieces. I think Duke will surprise Virginia Tech there, and then a win against your rival in the Virginia Cavaliers. Virginia Tech just dominates UVA. They will do so again this year. So I have 9-3 for the Hokies. Is a trip to the college football playoff possible? Oh yes, absolutely. Again, Miami, you could go on the road and win that one, and you're arguably more talented than Syracuse and Duke. I still see at least one loss here, but the Hokies have every making to explode in 2024. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. We'll talk about the Iowa Cyclones coming up next. Goodbye.